Welcome back to Race for the White House. I'm David Gregory coming to you from Los Angeles today. Glad you're here. Time now for the big 3 questions. Back with our esteemed panel, MSNBC political analyst and host of the Rachel Maddow Show on Air America, Rachel Maddow. NBC News analyst and chairman of the Democratic Leadership Council, Harold Ford Jr., political director for Atlantic Media, Ron Brownstein, and Morning Joe himself, MSNBC's Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough. First up, if you happen to be one of the many nostalgic Democrats out there who's waiting, hoping, dreaming that Al Gore will gallop into Denver on a white horse and may be your knight in shining armor, I must advise you grab a Kleenex while you listen to this.
And what about the idea of the honest broker who goes to the 2 candidates and helps push one or the other of them?
Yeah, kind of a modern boss Tweed.
Except his name would be Al Gore.
Well, I'm not applying for the job of broker.
Still, Gore's stature in the party seems to keep growing, which leads us to question number 1. What exactly will Al Gore's role be in this election? Ron Brownstein, any idea?
He's got a big project. He's announced a multi-million-dollar ad campaign over the next year to focus attention on climate change and global warming. I suspect that will be his principal focus, and that he'll try to avoid being drawn too deeply into the role of trying to tip the scales or settle this. I think most Democratic leaders would like this to be settled largely by the voters to the extent they will provide a direction for the party.
I would say also that
Joe Scarborough, this is somebody who has got unique experience when it comes to contested elections that draw out all the passion and all the divisiveness in the country. Doesn't he want to put his stamp on this at some point?
Well, he just can't. I mean, the problem is we have a couple of unique problems. Their names are Clinton and Gore. Bill Clinton should be the senior statesman of the party, a latter-day Clark Clifford. He can't come in because Hillary's in the race. Al Gore should be able to replace him, but for the fact Hillary's in the race. Hillary Clinton and Al Gore obviously didn't like each other from the very first day. I mean, from the day of Bill Clinton's inauguration, they were fighting. They were fighting at the end of the presidency in 2000 when the Gores believed that Bill Clinton, first of all, hurt them with a Monica scandal and then hurt them even more financially by going after the Clinton-Gore donors for her Senate campaign. There's just there is not enough room for Al Gore to get in as an honest broker.
All right, let me move on here. There's no question that the fight between Clinton and Obama has at times resembled an ugly brawl, but James Carville had this warning for Obama if he's the Democrat who gets to play in the general election Super Bowl. Listen.
If somehow or another Senator Obama's campaign thinks that if they get this nomination, that somehow the Hillary attack machine is something, they're crazy. I know these guys on the Republican side, and I know Charlie Black, and I know Rick Davis. They don't care what the New York Times thinks. They don't care what Keith Oakman thinks. They don't care. They're going to go out. This is powder puff stuff compared to the stuff that we're going to see in the general.
Powder puff. This brings us to question number 2. Is James right? Is McCain's attack machine tougher than Clinton's? Harold, what do you say?
I don't think there's any doubt, and many on the panel have said this. Joe and Ron have said this, even Rachel. What we're seeing now between the Democrats is warm-ups, is pregame compared to what will happen when this campaign is really joined. I went through a campaign in Tennessee where things were said by the National Republican Party, things were done that I thought were obnoxious, repulsive, revolting. People called it what they thought it was, and that didn't dissuade anyone from doing what these guys went out and did. So if anyone believes that this race is not going to get harder and tougher, I think they're kidding themselves. Now, having said that, I thought Senator Obama was right the other day to say that Senator Clinton should stay in this race as long as she sees fit. She has every right to. And Senator Clinton, I think, is responding to some of the things that Senator Leahy and others have said. And I respect Senator Leahy and all who have suggested what they've suggested about Senator Clinton. But this is not their call. This is the voters' call. And anyone who believes, again, that this race won't get harsher, uglier, unfortunately, that the language become even more intense, is simply kidding themselves.
Then, Rachel, this is the reason for Hillary Clinton perhaps to stay in the race, to make a Barack Obama, at the very least, if she either wins it or she makes him a better candidate by keeping the pressure on.
Well, I think there are 2 critiques of what's going on with the Democratic presidential nominating contest right now. One of them understands historical context and one of them doesn't. The one that doesn't understand it is the one that says, oh, this race is very personal and divisive and they're being mean to each other and therefore it should stop. I mean, we're not that far out of the point in our history when we used to settle political disagreements with guns on the floor of the Senate and with canes breaking them over one another's heads. I mean, partisanship and nastiness, this barely even competes. That's the analysis, I think, that is somewhat historically cheap. The one that does make sense is the one that says this contest is just going on for too long. And when you look at the historical context in the modern era, the party that is divided this late in the game, when the other side has already picked their candidate, the divided party tends to lose. Just a matter of timing. It's not a matter of tone.
But, you know, David,
let me just... Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
I'll say real quick, I mean, for all the complaints from the Obama side, there is a way to end this race. To win some states that he's not expected to win to the point where enough superdelegates move toward him that he reaches the magic number. It is within their capacity to end this. So they shouldn't be only complaining about Hillary Clinton not taking the hint and getting out. Ultimately, if they want her out, they could knock her out.
But they can't knock her out. They couldn't knock her out in New Hampshire. Right. They couldn't knock her down on Super Tuesday. They couldn't knock her out in Texas or Ohio. You know, if he wants to be heavyweight champ, he's got to knock her down and keep her down, and he can't do it.
But the Democratic Party is set up institutionally to put the Democratic candidate at a disadvantage. I mean, remember, the delegates were apportioned differently on the Republican and Democratic side all through this race.
But
every
Rachel,
Republican race was winner take all. Every Democratic one was proportional, and so no Democrat could build up an unassailable lead.
Rachel,
that's why it's so late.
If Barack Obama had won this thing a month ago, he would have just been absolutely slammed by the Republicans going into the fall. James Carville is dead right. This has been powder puff, and the longer he fights the Clinton machine, the stronger will be in the fall.
Barack Obama was
let me get into a final question here. Let me get to the final question. I want to get to the final question, which is Barack Obama has promised a different kind of politics, as we all know. But this weekend, he stepped into the familiar minefield of the culture wars, insisting on the importance of sex education for children like his two daughters. Listen.
If they make a mistake, I don't want them punished with a baby. I don't want them punished with an STD at the age of 16. You know, so it doesn't make sense to not give them information.
When all the talk of change and hope is over, the Atlantic Mark's Ann Binder wonders if this election will look like all of the others, writing the net effect of the competitive Democratic primary may well be that Obama becomes less of a unifying figure and more of a, Democrat. So question number 3 is this. Come November, will Obama simply be another liberal Democrat? If you look at his views, Rachel, despite all of his talks of a new kind of politics.
I think that if the Republicans get to define Barack Obama, he'll be a commie, obviously. I mean, he's going to define himself as the unifying centrist. We've already seen that in the primary race. That's the way that he wants to compete. Republicans are going to define any Democrat as a commie in this race. Every Democrat should know to expect that, and every Democrat should have a strategy against it.
Well, commie, how about just defining me as the most liberal member of the United States Senate?
According to that National Journal poll that said that John Kerry was
but the thing is, hold on a second, though. You can go issue by issue by issue by issue. And if we're playing by the old rules, then Barack Obama will be established as a liberal Democrat, and it'll work. But I don't think we're playing by the old rules this year. I think he actually may be able to transform ideology a bit. But if he can't, he's in trouble.
For a minute, though, that National Journal poll is such a canard.
You know what?
No, can we talk about the fact that in 2000... Joe, hold on. You can't throw it out there and then not let it be sail.
Gun control. Let's bring up the Supreme Court. Let's bring up abortion. Let's bring up taxes.
Joe, how do you explain that in 2004, that same National Journal poll said the most liberal member of the United States Senate was John Kerry? Now, in 2008, they say it's Barack Obama. How do you think...
So, Rachel Maddow, you're saying that the National Journal is somehow an instrument of the Republican Party? Try again.
I'm saying it's ridiculous for you to be citing that as fact. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right, we get the disagreement. We get the disagreement.
This race, I've been transported to an episode of Crossfire here with kind of left and right kind of craziness.
I know. Go ahead, Ron.
But having said that,
Ron, take us to a higher level,
other than Rachel's conspiracy theories,
take us to a higher level.
Other than Rachel's conspiracy theories, the reality is that Obama does have a voting record that in many ways can be portrayed as conventionally liberal. But what he does have is a demeanor and a style of politics that does, as I think Joe was suggesting, have the potential of transcending that. He strikes many centrist voters as someone who, whatever his initial ideological preconceptions, as someone who will listen to the other side and work with the other side. And that is his potential to reach beyond the partisan divide that we've seen in the electorate in the last couple elections, to do better among independents, do better perhaps even among moderate Republicans. But there's no doubt that the basic structure of the competition between these parties, between these candidates through the election, if he is the nominee, will push them back to a more conventional ideological position than both of them are in today. McCain, for that matter, as well, is someone who is going to be less appealing to voters in the middle by the time Democrats get through with him than he is today. But having said that, it doesn't have to be Kerry Bush, a 49-yard line against 49-yard line. You have two candidates who do have the potential to change the map and change the coalitions.
If this race boils down to guns and abortion, Democrats will have a challenge. If it's about the economy, energy independence, and how we craft a different standing for America in the world, Democrats will win. But if it's about this other stuff, Democrats will have a great challenge come November.